Welcome to the second day of the Berlin Forum on Global Cooperation. My name is Celia Schmidt and I'm delighted to be your moderator of today. And we already kicked off the forum with yesterday's discussion on the electrotech revolution, and we already learned some interesting things yesterday, since, for example, starting with the Santa Marta conference taking place 3 weeks ago, we heard that climate action now it's obvious that it means phasing out fossil fuels. We also heard that the current energy crisis is a window of opportunity, and more countries want to free themselves from fossils. We also learned that the appetite for partnerships is increasing, or even stronger than assumed, and that it's finally time for Europe to choose cleaner and better alternatives to ensure energy security. So today we want to continue these conversations and dive deeper into the different aspects on energy dominance versus energy cooperation. We want to discuss how to counter fossil fuel dominance. We want to discuss how new coalitions can look like, how fair and equitable partnerships can be designed, and what are potential pathways for the future. So just a few words about the program of today. We will begin with two high-level keynotes on sustainable energy cooperation versus fossil energy dominance, featuring former Chilean President Gabriel Boric and climate diplomat Jennifer Morgen, who will set the thematic frame for today. And after a short coffee break, a fishbowl discussion will explore Germany's energy cooperation with the Global South and strategies to counter fossil fuel dominance. And I'm excited to have policymakers and international experts at this fishbowl discussion with us. In the afternoon, after lunch break, we will dive into 4 parallel workshops, or so-called deep dives, that you have also registered for, that take place in different rooms here, that will examine key dimensions of the energy transition, including green hydrogen and what a fair and energy future can look like, the race, or the global race for critical minerals, new cooperations in a multipolar world order, and EU-China relations in the Global South. The day concludes with a panel reflecting on the intersection of geopolitics, energy, war, and gender, followed by a networking reception. So as you can see, the program is also digitally available, so you can also access it online. We have a full agenda today, and I hope you are starting the day not only refreshed and well-rested, but also curious and ready to engage critically. We are looking forward to exciting discussions and your contributions. And to open the day, I'm delighted to hand over the floor to Imme Scholz, President of the Heinrich-Böll Foundation, and Markus Hanisch, Director of the Center of Rural Development at Humboldt University Berlin. Over to you, Imme.
Yeah, good morning. Those of you who were here yesterday, you know that we will speak together, as we both are co-organizers of this conference. So good morning and a warm welcome to the main day of this year's Berlin Forum on Global Cooperation 2026 on behalf of the organizers, the Heinrich-Böll Foundation and the Humboldt University Center for Rural Development, SLE. In particular, I'd like to welcome our international guests, the names you have heard already, who have come from Latin America to join and inspire our discussions. His Excellency, former President of Chile, Gabriel Boric. And also Adriana Abdenour, co-director. I don't see you here. Ah, there you are, Adriana Abdenour. You are co-director of the Global Fund for a New Economy, and you were special advisor on international affairs at the presidency of Brazil to President Lula. So welcome to you also. We are truly privileged to have both of you with us, and I would like to add that it is a personal pleasure for me also, because Chile and Brazil are important countries in my life as a political person and while I was a researcher on sustainable development. And once I joined the Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung, I had the opportunity to meet both of you in person and also virtually due to the cooperation through our offices before you became President of Chile, Gabriel, and you the international advisor to President Lula. So thank you again for being with us. A very warm welcome also to the other speakers who will contribute to keynotes, panels, fishbowls, and deep dives. And I would like to extend this personal note also to you, but this would really be too long. So thank you for being here. This is the second Berlin Forum on Global Cooperation. We have a very full room and even people outside on the stairs. I think not yet, but later probably we will have that. And many more participating online too. We had to close registration last week due to the huge interest, and I think this is amazing and is really encouraging because global cooperation is extremely needed, but we do not see as much energy and interest in the places where we actually would like to see it, would need it. So with this Berlin Forum, we create a space for debate about Germany's and Europe relations and cooperation with that part of the world in which a growing majority of humanity lives, the so-called Global South, or global majority as others call it. The term denominates a huge diversity of countries in cultural, economic, in political terms, and so it is very hard to generalize. And that's why the term also is complicated, because often because it doesn't have a geographic meaning, it has many economic, social, cultural, historic meanings. But what is clear is that this group of countries matters more and more for Germany, not the least as a potential partner for our joint transition to sustainability, and to Europe too. We hope that this conference will become a space of both controversy and mutual understanding, learning to understand each other better through controversies, and transcending also the departmental boundaries that characterize Berlin's political landscape, and so often fragment it unnecessarily into separate specialist communities. This is intended to be a space not only for development policy, therefore, but also for foreign policy, economic policy, climate policy, and for security and human rights questions and democracy questions. We cordially invite stakeholders from all these different expert communities to join us in this debate. Because what is at stake in this sustainability transformation is the much invoked ideal of policy coherence. And this is important not only for effective policies, but also for effectively reducing inequalities in that context. Each year, we will place a current key topic at the center of our discussions, and this year it is a tension or even an opposition between the concept of fossil energy dominance that is currently pursued by the Trump administration and the concept of sustainable energy cooperation. And with this, I would like to hand over to you now, Markus, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ime. Good morning and a warm welcome also from the Humboldt side. Well, no matter how I turn, I will turn my back to someone here in this fishbowl. I apologize. Well, yesterday's fascinating discussions already highlighted how closely these questions of energy, security, international cooperation are intertwined. We are experiencing not only an electro-technological transformation, but also a geopolitical one. In this, Hormuz has surely accelerated history. We are gathered here in this Berlin Forum to deal with its competing visions. And once more, to mention, one vision is energy dominance, which views fossil energies as national resources of power, and in turn as determinants of geopolitical dependencies. And yes, 200 years of fossil-fueled geopolitics do not quietly end, and we observe non-cooperative, at times aggressive outcomes of energy dominance, of this vision. Well, the other vision builds on boosting renewable energy electrification and on energy cooperation to develop a completely different, new type of sustainable energy system. The changes are revolutionary in that the components of the old fossil energy system have to go because they no longer fit into a new vision of a smart, decentralized, and cooperatively owned and governed new energy system. It's an aggressive battle of systems before the background of an ongoing electrotech revolution, and that was laid out so well last night. The Santa Marta conference recently highlighted the window of opportunity for cooperation that this moment and this energy crisis is currently generating. Its severe consequences hit a global majority, which in turn supports an alignment of interest and a now rapidly growing camp of countries that support the transition to a mostly renewable-based energy system. Our Berlin Forum today discusses how we can open this window irreversibly. Let me say once more, 3 issues may frame our discussions on energy cooperation and our critical reflections at the Berlin Forum today. Just a suggestion, of course. But future energy partnerships may benefit from a credible, and was said yesterday, perhaps braver commitment here in the EU, where Europe's climate rhetoric actually aligns with its actual practice. Future energy cooperation may need to go beyond sharing pipelines and infrastructures. It must follow from an honest discussion about how the benefits and the cost of renewable energy transformation are shared among partners of unequal powers, both here and abroad. Finally, it's all about finding money. We had that last night. Both here and abroad, we may need to redesign financing institutions and find solutions for persisting problems of high borrowing cost and unequal access to capital for effective energy partnerships, even at times when our own budgetary pressures are tough. And in the meantime, we need to consider the consequences of our system's vulnerabilities, not only in energy sectors. The cost of the humus crisis are falling disproportionately on the poorest. In agriculture, for example, a price hike of inputs and food is fully underway, hitting the urban poor and the smallholder farmers the hardest. This may soon provide political ammunition and the conservative electorates to undo some of the past's best achievements of multilateral and bilateral cooperation in areas like rural development, hunger relief, natural resource management, and climate change mitigation and adaptation. In other words, there's a cost of doing nothing. This cost is rising with every day we wait. Finally, much of the burden in the benefits of energy cooperation will directly affect the quality of lives of people much younger than you and me. Therefore, issues like greater political credibility, fair access to finance, and an honest discussion about cost and benefit sharing, also among generations, are vital issues that we must discuss right here, and in particular with the next generation here in the forum. We are looking forward to the intense discussions in today's deep dive sessions, organized and co-organized and moderated also by the 64th cohort of the Humboldt University's postgraduate study program, International Cooperation for Sustainable Development. Please join us and the cohort a bit later in the day for Deep Dive 1 titled Towards a Just Hydrogen Transition, Germany's Green Steel and Energy Cooperation. We will also discuss in Deep Dive 2 on mapping the resources race, critical minerals, critical choices, pathways beyond dependency. In Deep Dive 3, we will ask who powers the future, corporations in a multipolar world order. And in Deep Dive 4, we will look at the upcoming patterns of EU-China relationships with the title Europe and China in the Global South, cooperation, complementarity, or competition. Dear participants, colleagues, esteemed speakers, this Berlin Forum will draw to close in a few hours. We hope that the discussions and the message that they produce will bring us a better understanding of what is needed now to use this crisis really as a window of opportunity without a fossil-fueled Plan B. Welcome again. We are thrilled to have you. And back to Celia.
Thank you for these powerful words to Im and Markus to set the frame for today. As mentioned, let's open this window of opportunity irreversibly and use this crisis really as momentum. And the title suggests this as well, and that was maybe also one of the reasons why you registered for the event, the question energy dominance versus energy cooperation, partnerships for joint transitions. So what can these partnerships look like? But first, before we start, let's take a look at our Mentimeter results. And while we look at it, you can also still fill out the little survey, scanning the code. If the connection is not good enough, there's also Wi-Fi here. You find the password over there. And for those still joining, there's still some free seats here also, even in the first row, so don't be shy, take a seat. So let's give you some time to respond to the survey. We're currently moving toward sustainable energy cooperation or fossil energy dominance. Let's take a few more seconds so people can fill it out and take a seat at the meantime. Okay. So the result looks quite promising. As we see, as people are still filling out, it still might change, but this gives us maybe a brief insight into what this room is seeing as prospects for the future. So if we say we're moving, or most of us say we're currently moving towards sustainable energy cooperation, which is quite a positive view here, let's see what is driving this shift and how partnerships can accelerate this further. But at the same time, the audience is also reflecting uncertainty. So there's both hope and uncertainty here in this room. So the key question might not be whether one system will immediately replace the other, but which actors will shape the rules, technologies, and supply chains of the emerging energy order. And now I'm sure you are as thrilled as I am to hear today's keynotes. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you to our distinguished guests for today, who will set the stage for the discussion. So it's my great pleasure to welcome our first keynote speaker, Jennifer Morgen. Jennifer Morgen, who is undoubtedly one of the most influential voices in international climate diplomacy. As former German climate envoy and state secretary at the German Federal Foreign Office, the Auswärtiges Amt, and fellow at Tufts University and the Hertie School, Jennifer Morgen has spent decades working at the intersection of climate justice, diplomacy, and international cooperation. And she brings a unique combination of high-level diplomatic experience. From 2016 to 2022, she co-led also Greenpeace International. So she also has a long-standing engagement in civil society. So she's bridging perspectives from negotiation rooms to the broader climate movement. In her keynote, Jennifer will discuss the challenges of confronting the fossil energy dominance agenda and advancing cooperation on renewable energies in line with international agreements. Glad to have you with us. Please give an applause to Jennifer Morgen. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. President Boric, Emma, Marcus, Jörg, colleagues, I'm going to try and do this a bit, friends. You know, I want to first start with a personal thank you. Emma, you had one, but I have one as well. And that's to you, President Boric, for all that you did on climate action, on the just energy transition, on democracy in Chile. I had an immense pleasure and honor of working directly with your environment minister, Maíz Rojas, in the climate negotiations on loss and damage and on the just transition away from fossil fuels. And I can just say that without Chile inside the negotiations and you coming to New York and going to capitals and doing all the work you've done, we would not have gotten it. So I just want to say thank you for all that you did. And also, it's just great you're here because we really need your voice here in Berlin. Also, thanks to the Böll Foundation and the Humboldt University for bringing us together, because this is a really critical moment to think together and to discuss, debate, and I would say also to feel together and to figure out how we're going to act together, because it's about action, right? And we all know that we're in this moment of rupture, and it's a moment of rupture. That means we have to look at the world the way that it really is, not what we might wish it to be. And I think that can be painful sometimes. I think we're all, you know, you get up and you think, oh my God, this morning it was about Greenland and it's still going on and he's still trying to take it over, right? But it's necessary to step into the rupture and to steer it into this sustainable, just future that we all are working on. We know the Strait of Hormuz, well, it's effectively closed. We heard last night quite a lot about the situation. The IEA's executive director, Fatih Birol, has called this supply disruption, quote, the greatest global energy security challenge in history. We've heard about how countries are rationing energy. Food security is a serious issue. Costs are skyrocketing. And people are hurting. People are hurting. And so I think in one way, the war in Iran has done what decades of warnings has failed to do. It's exposed the absolute fragility of our fossil fuel-dependent world. This is what fossil fuel dependency looks like in 2026. It's not an abstract risk. It's not a future scenario. It's here, right now, this week. And the cost, we see the cost of a global economy still changed to a single, politically volatile, geographically concentrated source of energy. And, you know, we've heard at the same time there is something else happening. The world is relearning this painful lesson. Something is moving, and that we see that, and we heard the numbers last night. Global renewable energy capacity grew by nearly 700 gigawatts, a new record in 2025. In Europe, we have wind and solar generating more electricity than fossil fuels for the first time. 1 in every 5 cars sold globally last year was electric. In China, the share was nearly 1 in 2, and there's projections from the IEA that globally 1 in 4 cars sold worldwide will be electric. This was unimaginable just a few years ago. At the same time, in parallel, and I want to make sure that even though the media doesn't talk about this, we do, the climate crisis is raging. It is raging. And just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean it's not happening. So we're seeing these intense impacts. We're seeing the lives of vulnerable people and fragile nature really under stress. And this world we've been talking about, well, it's splitting. It's not between north and south, east or west, but it's more between a model based on scarcity, volatility, and geopolitical leverage, and a model based on abundance, distributed production, carbon neutrality, and sovereign energy security. So our task today, as we've heard, is to dive deep and to figure out how to chart that model, the sustainable model, forward. But to do so, I think we have to be really clear-eyed about the forces working to lock us even longer into this broken past. The Trump administration, well, it's weaponized this crisis to advance its doctrine of American energy dominance. The United States is doubling down on fossil fuels, using its massive political and economic leverage to force a vulnerable world to buy American oil and gas, shut down wind turbines, and profit a few. This is not a marginal policy shift. They are using all tools, and they have no problem using tactics that for us would be unimaginable. They are doing that to solidify the global energy order in the long term and the direction of fossil fuel primacy, along with a coordinated global assault on multilateralism, the rule of law, human rights, feminism, renewable energy, and climate action. The goal is really explicit. A fragmented world where energy is a tool of bilateral coercion and where the rules-based international order is replaced by raw, transactional power. And I must add that it is a world that is dominated by a certain kind of masculine identity that should not go unspoken. This connection, and I thought our exchange last night was excellent with Eva and Jürgen and Adam. These are the debates that we need because the connection between energy dominance and a specific form of masculinity lies in a shared logic of control, where power is defined by the ability to dominate rivals rather than cooperate with equals. This worldview, it views global affairs as a zero-sum competition, making centralized and extractive energy sources particularly attractive to those who equate strength with hierarchy. An opposition to climate action, which we've seen for decades, right? It's not new, but it also stems from the same ideological well as resistance to gender equality. So a fundamental rejection of shared governance and international solidarity. Fossil infrastructures, we know, well, they require high-level centralized management that reinforces this top-down power dynamic, and conflict over resource-rich territories or transit choke points, like the Strait of Hormuz, well, it serves as that coercive arm of this energy model. So this environment of risk and militarized securitization, well, it appeals to a mindset that prioritizes enforcing hierarchies over managing the interdependence that we all know is needed. But I'm here to tell you that this bid for fossil dominance, it's an expensive illusion. It's a re-whipped version of the 1970s playbook that cannot withstand the economic, the technological, and climate realities of 2026. And while the US tries to chain the world to this volatile booms and busts of the past, the tectonic plates of the global economy are shifting under our feet. So Trump can delay the shift in the United States, but he cannot reverse it globally. I'm convinced of this. But the speed, and I want us to be, this is where the honesty comes in, the speed and the scale of the change, it's not a given. And this matters immensely, as you know, for climate justice. Time matters. We don't have a lot of time. So I think this year, 2026, the story is not just of American dominance, but it's this profound emerging story of global convergence of energy security, economic development, and climate action. And I like to think of those three together because we've heard countries outside of Washington are aligning around this kind of a future, not out of ideology, but out of national interest. It's not fast enough, but it's aligning. And I think we are seeing that this reality has just been sharpened by what's happening in the Middle East. And there you see that rather than begging for more oil, and we've talked quite a bit about this, there's a move to actually move to an unprecedented electrotech revolution, a distributed modular energy system that's really much harder to weaponize, blockade, or to use as an instrument of geopolitical coercion. And I think it's driven by these plunging technology costs. It's transforming how nations secure their future, not by retreating in isolation, but by anchoring their domestic energy security in decentralized, affordable solutions. So we're seeing those market shifts across the globe. You're seeing the growth of renewables. I think that, whether it be, we heard last night a little bit about Pakistan, where we have a people-led solar revolution that's accelerating clean energy strategies in India, in Brazil, in South Africa, and other countries. It's structural, it's bottom-up. And those are the true energy security that is no longer about dominating finite resources or enforcing the hierarchies of extraction. This powerful convergence, I think, of economic security and climate interests offers a rare and profound opportunity to do something that, I think many of us have been working for a long time, but it's to build a new model of international cooperation, not just in words, but actually in deeds, so that we can replace what's been moving forward thus far. But as I said, the efforts are not connected enough yet, nor robust enough to ensure that the energy transition continues at the required speed and scale. This brings us to Europe. We're here in Berlin, and I also am really grateful for all of you who came to Berlin, because we need a global conversation here. In Europe, I think we face an existential test. Our domestic industries are under threat. Our economic security is on the line. Our continent is warming faster than any other. And people are nervous and they're worried, understandably. And so I think it's very clear that the response cannot be to stay in the claws of energy dominance and weaken climate and methane standards to import LNG from the United States, right? I mean, our national economic climate security interests demand that we not only stay the course, but accelerate our economic development to a clean economy. Domestically, that means two things. I agree with whoever said it last night. If you aren't working at home, you don't have credibility to be working internationally. So first, the EU needs to put in place all the laws and policies so that 90% target by 2040 is met in a socially just, effective way. It's not turning back to fossil gas, including in the housing sector. It's also about executing the European Commission's newly reinforced electrification goals. Some of you may have noticed that President von der Leyen announced a couple weeks ago a goal to shift the electrification rate in Europe from 23% to 32% by 2030. It needs to be even faster than that, but the direction is right. But obviously, Europe's challenge is not just domestic. It's deeply international. So I think we need a pivot in how Europe engages with emerging and developing economies. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this, because we need your advice. I think the old paradigm of colonial resource extraction, where Global South provides the raw materials and Europe captures the value, it is dead. In reality, it's dead. But we live in a BRICS world, whether Europe likes it or not. And so I think if we want to build a secure, stable, global green economy, we've got to co-create a new model together. And that has to have, local value creation, processing, and manufacturing must happen within partner countries. Job generation, clean energy infrastructure must create durable, high-skilled local employment, and the co-ownership of supply chains, building mutual economic resilience rather than these unilateral dependencies. Trust is low. That's understandable. I think after COVID, the view of Europe in developing countries is very critical, understandably. And so I think Europe itself then needs to step into this moment to have greater coherence and urgency and courage, whether it be around actually developing a European climate foreign policy, stronger coordination between the EU institutions and the member states, better alignment of development finance, and also working with European industry in a new way. That's not just about protecting incumbent industries, but actually working in countries and ensuring that value creation is genuinely shared through local manufacturing, local employment, and local capacity building while maintaining jobs in Europe. And I just want to, we don't have time to go into this, but I have to also say Europe cannot ignore the crushing debt crisis that faces developing countries right now. So this isn't just about climate. This is really about Europe's economic future, its security, its role in the world. And I think one piece of the puzzle is the cooperation, and I do say cooperation, between the European Union and China. I think we can't talk about this if we don't talk, and we started to last night, but we have to confront and engage with the country that's moving at lightning speed, right? And China didn't just lower costs for the world, they really have fundamentally transformed global manufacturing. And I won't go, we heard a lot last night of, I think you all know, of the dominance that China has across the board in the processing and the production and the refining of critical minerals and rare earth elements that drive these EV and renewable markets that we want. And my point is, though, that Europe cannot afford to not have a China strategy. Europe does not have a China strategy. It's a collection of national positions under a flag, that happen to share a flag. And so I think we also see in this moment, I was in Beijing last week, the relationship between the EU and Beijing, it's fraught with immense tension. We have deep systemic disagreements on market access, critical minerals, human rights, China's stance on the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine. These are serious issues that we can't sweep under the carpet. But I think it's in Europe's fundamental national interest to engage with China. For without rapid decarbonization in China, global emission reductions will fail. They'll fail. Just look at the numbers, right? And the climate impacts in Europe and the climate impacts in the most vulnerable countries and peoples and nature will be catastrophic. So we have to find a unified Europe approach that moves past this current fragmented capital by capital diplomacy. We need a single coherent long-term China strategy. We need the diplomatic and economic and all institutions' brain and heart to map out. I'll give you 4 categories. First is strategic autonomy. Identify the critical economic sectors that must be produced inside of Europe, supported by policy fully aligned with the Paris Agreement. That means green, staying below 1.5 degrees. Global competition. Europe needs to define the clean tech areas where we want to invest heavily and compete fiercely on the global stage. Strategic interdependence. Recognize where the sectors where China, well, it actually holds an insurmountable manufacturing lead. So there, Europe should be looking at investment into Europe with foreign direct investment, maybe some joint ventures that bring Chinese technology to Europe. For Europeans, I think this is a real mindset shift, but it's really needed. And then we have strict European standards establishing rules for engagement that ensure fair competition and high standards. And last but not least, maintain open, structured dialogues on climate action, energy security, and macroeconomic stability. There's a very important meeting coming up in June. For those of you who are working on this, it's the EU-China High-Level Environment and Climate Dialogue. It's led by Vice President Rivera from the Commission and from the Chinese Vice Premier. And I think there getting a structured dialogue moving would be great. That's just one piece of the puzzle. I think another is just 2 final thoughts from me. I think one is, we've talked about EU, we've talked about a bit about China, we've talked about EU-China. But I think it's clear, as I said, we need more. We need more, and it's messy, it's not an either or. And so I also noticed, obviously, the Santa Marta conference that occurred, right? And the 57 countries that came together, not just to say whether we transition away, but how. And I think the new format in which they met and discussed was really was a real breakthrough. It was frank, it was practical, it was committed to action. At the same time, I want to state really clearly, it's not a replacement to the Paris Agreement. And it's not a formal negotiating body. It's needed, it's much more agile. It can focus on implementation, and it can build the political solidarity to sustain that commitment over time. It's a coalition of the doing. And that's the model I think we need more of. How governments can be learning from each other, and how to work on, how to redesign the fiscal systems, how to handle the social costs, how to build the institutions. So yes, the world is fragmenting, but that's real, but it doesn't have to fragment into a race to the bottom amongst competing bilateral deals and competing great power spheres. It can reshape itself productively into these coalitions of the willing. And I think that feeds directly into what the Brazilian COP presidency also did. President Lula came to Belém, and he called for roadmaps to transition away from, to reduce our dependency. Adriana knows all about this, I can see you, from fossil fuels. It was like it was like a solar beam hits Belém, right? Okay, not a bomb, a solar beam. And so now how these things come together, I think, is really important as well. I think one organizing part of that is electrification, green electrification. I think it's the practical expression of the convergence of interests I described earlier. It's where different interests can come together. It's an area where perhaps China, noting that it needs to play more driving force role in international cooperation could come in. So I think our tasks are really to build those partnerships And I would just say, watch the space for an electrification alliance. Let's talk about this today. I think it's really interesting, and it's bubbling, which is good, also in Beijing. Lastly, but not least, for someone like me, I think all of this really remains, the ultimate anchor for all of this is the implementation of the Paris Agreement. You know, over the last 10 years, the Paris framework, combined with the tech development and the market forces, it's quietly driven this astonishing market shifts we're seeing today. It's creating that long-term certainty. This is one reason why the Trump administration is working to destroy it and other multilateral agreements. And I think it's good. It's really important to know that that withdrawal of the U.S. of the Paris Agreement, it does not signal the death of the regime. It makes our defensive investment in it more urgent than ever. There's a lot of criticism of why all these people have to fly to wherever COP it is, and has this really developed or not. I can say if it weren't effective, you wouldn't have had the Trump administration pull out, right? And so I think we have to remember that multilateralism, it's the only place that the most vulnerable countries have a seat at the table. Without AOSIS, without the least developed countries, we would never have a loss and damage fund. So we need to really protect it and improve it, of course. And there are mechanisms to bring these various initiatives that are coming forward, like Santa Marta, like electrification, into the Paris Agreement directly. We negotiated that, so that we don't have, because we're weaker if we're all fragmented. You're doing this bilateral, I'm doing that bilateral, here's this alliance over here. But if it all can come forward to meeting those Paris goals, that's great. So I think we have to protect it, and not passively, but very actively. So in closing, I just want to say, I think we see this situation that we're in right now. We can submit to this world, be overwhelmed by it. It is overwhelming, this volatile, coercive model of fossil dominance, or we together can build that resilient, rules-based alternative rooted in the clean industrial revolution and human rights in cooperation. So I say, let's engage here today with determination to build that alternative. It will only happen if we build it. So let's protect that international architecture that we've painstakingly created, accelerate our own domestic transition, stay in the game on that, don't give up, never give up, never. And co-create a model of cooperation that is based on mutual respect, shared prosperity, and a common future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer Morgan, for these very powerful and engaging words. I feel very eager and motivated already to start the work, to co-create this new model together. So let's take this momentum of the Berlin Forum to get the work, or at least, as Jennifer said, it will only happen if we build it. So let's start the work.